In this video I'm going to show you how to do sew a neckline on the scrubs uniforms with a facing at the front and a piece of bias tape at the back. So you start off by sewing a stay stitch line of sewing all the way around your neck edge. So this one here is within the seam allowance, so it won't show once you've actually finished sewing this neckline. It's just a straight stitch and it helps to stop the neckline from stretching out of shape when you finished it. So do that on the front piece and the back piece. Then I've started off this piece so that you're not watching me sew all of it. So you've done your stay stitch around the edge of your neckline. This is the back piece. Take a piece of bias tape and with right sides together sew that a 1 centimetre seam allowance along that channel, that fold that you've got in your bias tape. Now you're using bias tape because this is a curved neckline and this is cut on the cross of the fabric, the bias of the fabric, so it will go around that neckline beautifully. It will stretch around there. When you're putting your bias tape on, just be wary that when this is then turned back on itself, that you've got enough bias tape here to be sewn into the shoulder seams. So when you start off here, if you put that piece there at the edge of your fabric, when you're going to turn that back again, it ends up miles away from your shoulder seam and you'll end up with a raw edge there. So just give yourself a generous amount at each end so that you've got that there. Then press that upwards and just clip those seams. You see, like I've put loads of clips in there. So just clip those edges to ensure that when you turn that back on itself, it opens up that fabric so it folds over beautifully. Give that a press so that your seam is right on the edge, like that. Turn it over. If you've got a size label, here is when you put it in. I've got a piece of twill tape which I've just written on with a marker, a sewing marker, which is a permanent one. It won't disappear when you wash it. Pop that pin in there to hold that in place, and then we're going to sew this down to the tunic along here, along this edge. So come along to the sewing machine. Start off with your back stitch at the beginning. And sew that quite close to the edge. Over the top of your label. That'll then hold the label in place. Right to the end and do a back stitch at the end. There we go. Lovely. And that's what that looks like. I'm just using up any ornaments of bias tape that I've got in my haberdashery for this. Actually looks quite nice, a really neat finish. And obviously you don't have to use it just for your scrubs, it can be for other things as well. So now you can just cut off those corners so it runs flush with the edge of your shoulder seams. So that's how you finish off the back neck edge. Take that away and we'll do the front neck edge. Now start off with your fabric right sides facing you, and your facing piece apply some interfacing, iron on some interfacing to the wrong side, and finish off the edge with an overlock or a zigzag stitch just to stop that from fraying. And what I've done here is I've marked a 1 centimetre seam allowance from the edge of my fabric, so that will be my sewing line, so 1 centimetre, and I've taken it down to a V, so it gives you a line to follow and make it really neat when you come to sew it. Pin that onto your neckline, just the front piece we're doing here, right sides together and all the way up to the top, and sew that down here, down to the bottom, put your needle down, turn and come up the other side. So it should look like, so once you've sewn that neckline, you then clip into this corner, into the V, as far down as you can go without actually clipping your stitches. Then press that neckline that way, so you're pressing those seams flat, and then press it so the seam is right on the edge. If at this point when you're pressing you get an ugly bit at the bottom where it all starts folding over like that, then you haven't clipped enough into that V, so clip again so you can press that nice and flat. Once you've pressed that flat, I've got one ready here, already done. Should look like this. So this is, we're now on the wrong side of the fabric. There's our facing, all pressed flat, seam on the edge, and then pin that around the edge. And what I'm going to do with this one is sew along here, I'm just going to follow my stitching line where I've got the edge of the fabric where I've overlocked it. So come along to the sewing machine. And get a back stitch at the beginning. Just follow that stitching line that you've got at the edge of your overlock stitch or your zigzag stitch, whatever you've used to finish that off. When you get to the corner, leave your needle down, lift your foot up and turn, and go across the bottom this way. On a previous video where I've shown the facing in a different way, I've done this, sewn this so that this sewing line is to a V, which you can do if you want to. So different ways of finishing this off. I'm just showing you an alternate way here. Okay, come across to the ironing board. Take your pins out. So from the wrong side, that facing is all now sewn down. From the right side, you have a very neat edge all sewn down. And then you would take your back piece, wrong piece, and your front piece, sew those together at the shoulder seams. Because I'm doing French seams, I would do mine wrong sides together first, like that. And I'm not going to do this for you because you should know how to do this by now if you've watched all my videos. So what you end up with is, when your seams are sewn together, you line up the edges so that they carry on in a nice continuous line, and that would be your finished edge. And there we have the alternate neckline, as I call it.